We have just been handed some important breaking news from a report in BuzzFeed. This is about the Russia investigation. The headline of this report, which I have to hold here and read for you, is President Trump directed his attorney to lie to Congress about the Moscow Tower project. We'll be joined in just a moment by one of the reporters who has filed this report. The lead of this article says President Donald Trump directed his longtime attorney Michael Cohen to lie to Congress about negotiations to build a Trump Tower in Moscow, according to two federal law enforcement officials involved in an investigation of the matter. Trump also supported a plan set up by Cohen to visit Russia during the presidential campaign in order to personally meet President Vladimir Putin and jumpstart the tower negotiations. Make it happen, the sources said Trump told Cohen. And even as Trump told the public he had no business deals with Russia, the sources said Trump and his children, Ivanka and Donald Trump Jr., received regular, detailed updates about the real estate development from Cohen, whom they put in charge of the project. We are joined by phone now by Anthony Cormier. He is an investigative reporter for BuzzFeed News. He's one of the reporters on this story. Anthony, the headline contains the most devastating part of your article, and that is President Trump directed his attorney to lie to Congress. What more do we know about this?
Hi, Lars. Thanks for having me. We know that this is based on a series of documents and interviews with witnesses before the special counsel even got to Michael Cohen. So that the special counsel's investigators had an inkling or an awareness of this directive from the president to Mr. Cohen, even before Michael went in and testified recently. And when he did go in and he did tell them that, yes, indeed, I was directed to do this. It sort of put them over the top. It gave them all of the evidence that they needed to at least establish this.
And do we know in that session, did Michael Cohen have to raise his right hand and take an oath to testify?
I don't know.
Yeah,
that's a good question. I can try to ask him.
Okay, because sometimes in these situations they do, sometimes they don't. But in any event, lying to Congress is in many instances a crime, federal crime. And so there's the President of the United States directing his personal attorney to lie to Congress. Do we expect this to be part of Michael Cohen's testimony when he testifies just, I think, 22 days from now in a hearing in the House of Representatives?
That's a really good question. My understanding is that the Cummins team, the folks on that panel that are setting this up, have made an agreement not to ask questions that may overlap with the Office of Special Counsel's investigation. That's a little bit fluid, I'm told, at the moment, so we'll sort of have to wait and see.
I mean, I would think some of what's fluid about it is the investigators want to protect information that other people who might be questioned in that investigation don't know about. But if, for example, now that you have made this public, now with your public reporting on this, it is entirely possible that this opens up an avenue of inquiry in that hearing that might otherwise not have been opened up.
That certainly does. I don't imagine that Congress is going to be terribly happy that, number one, they're not happy that they were lied to by Mr. Cohen, and they're certainly not going to be happy to learn that he was told to lie by the president.
And the other way to do this, if the Congress really wants to take testimony on this from Cohen, would be to work out some kind of arrangement with the special prosecutor where this part of their testimony, if the special prosecutor insists, takes place in private and is not public testimony. But it's hard to believe that they will have Michael Cohen in the House of Representatives testifying under oath, and no one there will be able to ask him about your reporting that the President of the United States or directed him to lie to them.
Right, certainly. You would expect that the very people that were lied to would want an explanation of what happened. And
do you have any, I don't want to get into your sources here, but what do we know about what Michael Cohen has done with this information? Who has Michael Cohen told the president directed me to lie to Congress?
He told the special counsel's team. I don't think he's told a whole bunch of people. He didn't tell me. So it appears to us that, from our sourcing, that they had the broad contours of this directive before he ever showed up. And when he did, this was one of the lines of inquiry that they pressed on him. And if you look at his sentencing memo, the special counsel indicates there that Ms. Cohen gave credible and helpful information about how he put together the letters and his testimony to Congress. So it appears that in the sentencing memo filed, I think it was last month, the special counsel was leaving at least a breadcrumb or a clue. He was suggesting publicly that there was something here about Michael Cohen preparing his testimony to Congress that was of interest and of use to the special counsel. So it was sort of sitting out there and perhaps hidden in plain sight.
And I'm reading from your reporting, Anthony, saying that the special counsel's office learned about Trump's directive for Cohen to lie to Congress through interviews with multiple witnesses from the Trump organization and internal company emails, text messages, and a cache of other documents. Cohen then acknowledged those instructions during his interview with that office. And this brings us back to the extensive criminal investigative discovery that the prosecutors have been doing inside the Trump organization, inside the Trump company. Right. We know they have, to some degree, the cooperation from the chief financial officer in there. Donald Trump's, in effect, longtime accountant within the company. And so that's, for Michael Cohen to be walking into an interview where they've already obtained references to these kinds of things through Trump organization emails and text, as you say, Michael Cohen had to know right away they know this story.
Yeah, the gig was up. When he walked in, it became very clear to him, I'm told, after the first interview, he comes back for another, and it's very clear to him that they've got the goods, right? They have receipts on this stuff, and so he tells him, that I was directed to do this.
Anthony Cormier, thank you very much for your invaluable reporting tonight, and thank you for being able to join us so quickly. Really, really appreciate it.
You got it, man. Thanks, Lawrence.
Thank you. We will be joined by Congressman Eric Swalwell, but first, back with us, Jill Wine-Banks and John Heilman, who were not allowed to leave the chair during the commercial break when I was handed this breaking news report. And so, Jill, to the sentencing of Michael Cohen, we all noticed that the special prosecutor was much more satisfied with Michael Cohen's cooperation with his office than the local U.S. attorney in Manhattan was satisfied with his cooperation with his office. This could be why. This is Michael Cohen giving the special prosecutor his own account of something they apparently already had through electronic communication of the President of the United States directing Michael Cohen while he's president, right from the Oval Office, to lie to Congress. This truly is a Nixonian moment.
This is absolutely one of those moments where you go, when is enough sufficient? This is when it is, because this is exactly the Watergate model of Nixon saying, you can always say, I don't remember, I don't recall, even though you do. That's subornation of perjury, plain and simple. It is a direct act of the president while he is president, interfering not only with an investigation, but of directly conspiring to obstruct justice. And this should be enough for even and remember, he lied, that is Cohen, he told Cohen to lie to the Senate. Even the Republican Senate is going to have to say, we've been had. We can't have him lying to us. And in the end of Watergate, it was the Republicans who went to Nixon and said, you have to resign or we will convict you in the Senate. And that's going to happen here. We're getting closer and closer.
John Heilman, as usual, it's very hard for me to think of what Rudy Giuliani will say about this, but this time he's going to have to tell you that is not smoke coming out of that gun.
Yeah, I can't imagine what Rudy will say. I just looking through this article, just to put a very fine point on it, the thing that caught my eye right after the thing you read, Lawrence, says this revelation is not the first evidence to suggest the president may have attempted to obstruct the FBI and special counsel investigations into Russia's interference in the 2016 election. But Cohen's testimony marks a significant new frontier. It is the first known example of Trump explicitly telling a subordinate to lie directly about his own dealings with Russia. I am certain it will not be the last. And the reality is that There is right now going on behind the scenes in Washington a lot of conversation with many of the former Trump administration officials who have testified behind closed doors to the House Intelligence Committee and the Senate Intelligence Committee about things that they said that have now been shown to be false. There are a number of them who are currently in the process of lawyering up in a serious way because they committed perjury in those instances. I happen to know that from my reporting. It is inconceivable to me in the context of this reporting that Michael Cohen will be the only one who lied at the instruction of the president. So this will not, I think, be the only instance in which we have reporting like this. This is suggestive to me, not just of an incredible frontier being crossed, but of a frontier that we're going to see, or this, now that the Rubicon has been crossed, we're going to stay on that side of the Rubicon. We're going to see other examples of this come up.
We're going to go now to one of the members of Congress who was lied to, apparently, by Michael Cohen at the direction of the President of the United States. We are joined by phone by Congressman Eric Swalwell. He's a member of the House Intelligence Committee and the House Judiciary Committee. Congressman Swalwell, your reaction to this breaking news report tonight from BuzzFeed with the headline, President Trump directed his attorney to lie to Congress.
Good evening, Lawrence. I view this as powerful evidence of collusion. And I say that because it is a consciousness of guilt. He is asking Michael Cohen to lie because the truth would expose what was going on with the Russians early on in the candidacy. And you're right, I was on the interview team that interviewed Michael Cohen, and I hope those transcripts are released soon, but you will see an intense interest in understanding what was Donald Trump's knowledge at the time that Michael Cohen was working up a Trump Tower proposal in Moscow. Also, it's corroborated by the way that Donald Trump has acted with other witnesses in the Russia investigation. It sounds a lot like what he said to James Comey when he said, I hope you can make the case go away with Michael Flynn. He is someone who always is seeking to take out the shovel and bury the evidence and directing his subordinates to do that. So I hope now, Congress will have, especially the Intelligence Committee, an opportunity to hear from Michael Cohen. And, Lawrence, if the president did not do this, he would be racing over to Bob Mueller's office to sit in a chair and give the other side. And he's just not eager to do that at all.
Congressman Swalwell, you were in the room when Michael Cohen lied to Congress, according to Michael Cohen's own admission, apparently. Did you swear him in? Did he have to raise his right hand and take an oath?
He did. No, he was under oath, for the testimony, and he had serious questions for nearly 8 hours posed to him, and we were on the topic of Russia. That was the focus of our investigation, and we left that interview not believing that we got the full truth, and that was confirmed by his own guilty plea.
So, Congressman, just to review the possible legal jeopardy here, the lying to Congress is in and of itself can be a crime in some instances, not necessarily in every instance. But once you've raised your hand and you've taken the oath, you've stepped into possible perjury territory. What do you see in this as the possible criminal liability for Michael Cohen and, more importantly, for the person who, according to Michael Cohen, told him to lie, the President of the United States?
I think the biggest criminal exposure is for the president, for obstruction of justice, for suborning, perjury of another witness. I believe that Michael Cohen, just based on the hours he's spent with Mueller, he has probably come clean about this. And if he didn't, you can expect that he will probably have, if this is true, more charges added. But I suspect that he has probably come clean and that Mueller knows this. And that's probably why Donald Trump is doing all he can to avoid the Mueller team and not come in for an interview.
There's a sequence of questioning now that we will all be replaying as soon as we can cue it up, of William Barr's confirmation hearing, in which Senator Amy Klobuchar went through a list of things that she put in front of him and asked, is that a crime? If the President of the United States does this, is that a crime? One of them was suborning perjury. One of them was apparently exactly what Michael Cohen is now testifying to. And William Barr said, yes, that is a crime. Your reaction to that, Congressman?
And so, Lawrence, my suspicion, as your other guest mentioned is that the president probably instructed other witnesses who came before us, particularly his family members, to also lie about their contacts with the Russians. That, again, it's just all of the arrows point in that direction. There's been no arrow that points in the other direction that the president said, go forward, be truthful. And if you remember, Hope Hicks, I questioned Hope Hicks, and I had the exchange with her where she told me that she had told lies for the president before, when he was a candidate and as a president. So we know this is just his modus operandi. Congressman
Eric Swalwell, thank you very much for joining us.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks
for this breaking news. Really important to have you. Really appreciate it. And Jill Wine-Banks, he took an oath. They swore him. Eric Swalwell was there. He was asking the questions. They swore him in. What do you see? What's the legal checklist here for Michael Cohen and for the president? Is Michael Cohen, if this is proven true, guilty of lying to Congress as a crime? Is he guilty of perjury as a crime? Is the president of the United States guilty of suborning perjury if this report is true?
Yes. Yes, and yes, absolutely. And it means that I want to have a big box of popcorn on February 7th when he testifies again. This has gotten even more exciting for his testimony before the House now. I can't wait for that.
The control room is telling me that we do have Amy Klobuchar in the confirmation hearing asking William Barr about exactly this. Let's look at this.
A president persuading a person to commit perjury would be obstruction. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay.
Or any person who persuades another to, yeah.
Okay. You also said that a president or any person convincing a witness to change testimony would be obstruction. Is that right?
Yes.
Okay. And on page 2, you said that a president deliberately impairing the integrity or availability of evidence would be an obstruction. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And so what if a president told a witness not to cooperate with an investigation or hinted at a pardon?
You know, I'd have to know the specific. I'd have to know the specific facts.
Okay. And you wrote on page 1 that if a president knowingly destroys or alters evidence, that would be obstruction.
Yes.
Okay. So what if a president drafted a misleading statement to conceal the purpose of a meeting? Would that be obstruction?
Again, you know, I'd have to know the specifics.
Joining our conversation now, Elizabeth Drew. She's a political journalist and author. She covered the Watergate scandal that led to the resignation of President Richard Nixon for The New Yorker. Liz Drew, we had invited you to come on tonight to talk about this important new article about impeachment, but let's talk about what's breaking right in front of us right now. And this really seems like a new level of jeopardy for the president. Here you have Michael Cohen describing exactly what Donald Trump's nominee for Attorney General described in his confirmation hearing as a crime, and it is a crime if committed even by the president, that there is no way that the president could argue any form of innocence or any form of presidential authority that gets him out of this. This really seems to be a new level of jeopardy for the president tonight. Is that the way you see it?
Well, it would be another in my ever-lengthening list of impeachable offenses against the president. And there's another aspect of this, Lawrence. We haven't gotten into this ever before in our history, but this shows how much the president lied to the American people during the campaign. He didn't have any business with Russia. He did this thing about, I never made a phone call to Russia. Well, he did have business with Russia. And there's a whole series of things that happened that pay off to the women he slept with. It was not an affair, it was a one-night stand with Stormy, so let's not overdo this. If he went to such nefarious, dishonest lengths to win the nomination, and the New York U.S. attorneys have already said that this was a felony, the paying off, then there's a real question of if somebody does these things in order to gain the presidency, can they be impeached for that? I think so.
And Jill Wine-Banks, this does feel, in many ways, we always reach for Watergate parallels because it's the only case we have in our history that is so clearly like this. But there was that moment when, because of your investigation, but also because of the simultaneous investigation by the House Representatives, which did not wait for you to complete your work before starting their impeachment process. They started the impeachment process not knowing what the evidence was, and through the process and through their subpoena power, they discovered what became known as the smoking gun in a Nixon tape. And what we heard on that tape was President Nixon basically directing the criminal activity. What we have here from Michael Cohen is, and I'm not sure this is without tape, but we have a similar situation, and so far without tape. But we know Michael Cohen tape-recorded phone calls. Michael Cohen might have this as a tape-recorded phone call of the president saying this to him. But even if he doesn't, it is essentially the same thing. It essentially, here is the president of the United States in the Oval Office, presumably, on the phone, telling Michael Cohen to commit federal crimes and do it right there in the House of Representatives.
And, you know, as a trial lawyer, what's important is that there be some corroboration, because otherwise it's Michael Cohen, who is an admitted liar, against the president, who is a known liar, but not admitted yet. And so the fact that this article says that there are documents, there are emails, there are text messages, it doesn't mention tapes, but I think you're right. There are enough tapes that maybe, if we're lucky, this is on tape. But there are other forms of corroboration, like these text messages, that could do it. And I think that we really are in new territory tonight. I think Elizabeth is exactly correct on everything she has said.
And John Hyman, this was Trump company business we're talking about. That's why, presumably, according to this report, emails and texts exist within the Trump company that could involve people not named Trump, or it could involve people named Donald Trump Jr., where they are saying, they're communicating about the Trump Tower deal in Moscow, and they are also getting their story straight for possible talking to the House Representatives about this. And in there might be, you know, Dad says he told Michael Cohen to not tell the truth, basically.
I think you read a story like this, and there are just two quick things to think about. One is, every time a story like this breaks, and particularly in this one, you think about the sourcing here and with the sequence that's described of the accumulation of the evidence and then the turning to Cohen and Cohen confirming it, is just that it reinforces the notion that I think we're going to learn, to the extent we haven't already learned it, which is that Mueller knows everything.
Yes.
Right? Mueller knows everything, and that's the first thing. And the second thing is, as we get closer to Michael Cohen going to jail and closer to Michael Cohen's public testimony on February 7th, this story is related in a weird way to the thing we were talking about before, about the crazy story about him manipulating the polls. The Michael Cohen stories, anything he touched, they're starting to tumble out. And you said earlier that you thought that this was one piece, perhaps, of why Mueller was so much happier with the level of cooperation he had with Cohen. This was an example. I don't think, just like the earlier thing, I don't think this is the only one of those. And I think we're going to start to see more and more of these. This is a bombshell. I think we're going to hear a lot, much louder explosions as we get closer and closer to February 7th, just over this next couple of weeks.
But this is obstruction and collusion.
Obstruction and collusion. We're going to have to squeeze in a break here. Elizabeth Drew, Jill Wine-Banks, John Heilemann, thank you all for joining our discussion. We're going to be right back.
Hi, everyone. My name's Mike. I'm the creator of Mox News. And for the last 15 years, I have been telling you that as long as I have the support of the community that I serve, Mox News will post videos forever. And that's the truth. As long as I have your support, no one could ever make me stop. Unfortunately, currently, less than 1/2 of 1/10 of 1% of Mox News viewers ever donate, tip, or contribute anything back. Again, let me make that really clear. Much less than 1/2 of 1/10 of 1% ever give anything back. And to those of you who have donated to Mox News, I want to thank you so much, because it's because of your generosity that we have been able to bring attention to important videos that millions and millions of eyes would have never seen. And I think that that's an amazing thing that we've been able to make happen together. And I can't thank you enough for helping me make that happen. So it's not too late. If you'd like to see Mox News covering the 2020 presidential election, if you can't imagine the 2020 presidential election without Mox News, please, there's still time. You can make a difference. It's easy to make a contribution, donation, or tip. You can go to moxnews.com, or in the text body of this video, there are clickable links to the Patreon page or to the PayPal page. And again, it should take less than 2 minutes to make a donation, and your donation can make a big difference. So I thank you all. Stay cool. One of these days this war is going to end, and it would be awesome if Mox News could be there to celebrate that day with you.